today is week 10 of the Steele Summer Learning Series. So thank you for those of you that are still joining with us. And we're fortunate to have our Vice President of Technology, Christine Tollison, on the line with us today. Welcome, Christine.
Good morning.
And we also have Systems Architect Lindsey Martin, who has been a case builder with Steele since 2015 and knows the system inside and out. And so we're excited to get your perspective today too, Lindsey, and welcome to the show.
Morning, thank you.
So kind of as we get started today, what I'd like to do is kick over to Christine, and we're going to walk through some of the reports that are available within the Selerix benefit selection system, and kind of have a discussion about what's available to you, how you can run reports, reports that we can help you with, and so forth. And so, Christine, without further ado, what I'd like to do this morning is just kick it straight over to you.
Awesome, thank you. For those of you that have been with us for most of the webinars, you may remember last time I had a little bit of an issue with my presentation, so we're going to hope that that doesn't repeat again. Today we are going to be talking about reporting. As those of you who use our system know, there is lots and lots of data information that is housed in our system. And many times, some of your questions revolve around how do you get that information back out if you need to provide reports to your carriers, or you're just wanting data information to review. So we're going to talk about some of the most common reports that you can run out of the system today that don't require a lot of programming on your end. They're what we would consider a canned report. And we'll also take your questions. If there's specific reporting needs that you have that you're interested in learning about, feel free to ask us those in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to try and answer that for you. So we're going to be talking about the 5 most common reports that we feel are typically requested from both our clients and our broker partners. And those will be our Census Extract report, the generic payer report, the self-bill payer extract, an activity report, and an enrollment summary report. So first we're going to be starting with the Census Extract, and this particular report lets you retrieve personal, employment, dependent, and current enrollment information for your employees. And it will also show benefits that the employee is enrolled in and the dependents that are covered on the plans. Some questions that this report will answer is if you want to know where you can find a list of all of your employees' email addresses, you would be able to run the census report and get that information. If you have custom questions that are on your case, such as spousal carve-outs, maybe you've asked some wellness questions, things like that, those would all be included on the employee census. And if you want to see what the number of hours is that employees are listed as working in the system, to be able to average those, you can pull that information off of a census report as well. I want to walk you through just some of the steps.
Hey, Christine, can I stop you there for just 1 second?
Sure.
Would you say that one common use of the census report is if I'm an employer and maybe I'm going to go through the process of renewing my life and disability plans this year, maybe got a rate increase from my long-term disability provider or my basic life provider, or maybe the broker or advisor community is wanting to do a shop on that and just make sure it's so competitive. And so the advisor is coming back to the employer and saying, we need a census. Is the Census Extract, is that the best report to use for providing for something like that?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer that with it depends. There's also a payer report that can get you a lot of the same information, and depending upon whether or not you are wanting to report all eligibles, whether they are enrolled or not, or if you're wanting to just report the employees who are currently enrolled on a plan, would greatly determine which report you would want to use. As an example, the census file, if you are wanting to see who's covered on medical insurance, all of the dependents are going to be listed on the dependent tab, even if they don't have coverage. So if you're only wanting to report the actual dependents who are currently covered, then a payer report would be a better report to run.
Got it. And if I want all dependents and all employees, then I want the census report.
Then you want the census file, exactly.
Got it.
So for any of these reports, I'm not going to repeat these steps on every sample of reporting that you're going to be running, but you should see, as an administrative user, you should see across the top a reports tab, and you would click on that reports and then click on run reports to access the reporting menu. So once you click on run reports, you're going to be taken to the menu where you can easily search in the browse section. I caution you to click on the drop-down box that is to the left of the search bar and select all for that. There's a few different options, but if you select all, then you'll ensure that all of the different reporting that's available will show up. And in this particular case, since you know what type of report it is, you can just type in census and you will see the census extract come up as your option for a report to run. There are a lot of different parameters that are available to choose within this report. Typically, you can choose a payer, but normally we ask you to run an actual payer report instead of census. So when you're running a census report, you're typically always going to choose all payers, meaning that you want to see all plans that are on the report, choose all plans, all products, all locations, all employees. And your scope normally is going to be a full file, unless you're wanting just to run a census on recent changes that have been made. But normally when we run a census file for you, it's going to be a full file.
So Christine, kind of maybe an elementary question here, and everybody may already be with us on this. So I'm looking at the word scope there, and under scope on your screenshot, I see ACD. What does scope mean, and what does ACD mean?
ACD stands for adds, changes, and deletes. Scope is where you're choosing what type of report you want. The options would be full file, or adds, changes, and deletes typically. If you get into where you're running COBRA reports, you'll see additional scopes such as additions for your initial notice files, or deletions if you're running a qualifying event report. But typically for most of our files, your options are ACD, which is adds, changes, and deletes, or a full file.
So for the census file specifically that we're looking at now, if I run a scope as a full file, then it's going to give me all employees on that census. And if I run a census as an ACD file, it's going to tell me employees who have had a change in their record. Is that how that works? Correct.
And it's going to be based on the date range that you're choosing, which we'll get into on the next screen. But you do have some filtering options. Say you want to run the census just for a specific job class. Maybe you're wanting to see a list of all the retirees that are in the system. You can filter by job class by checking or unchecking the boxes. It's automatically checked to include them. So if you're only wanting retirees, then you would uncheck all of the other boxes so that you're only going to see a census of your retiree population as an example.
So just looking at what I think we have here. So we're running a census report, which is going to tell us all employees and dependents. And we're running that for all payers, all plans, all job classes. So really, we're going to get everything on this particular report. And if we were running this because, for example, we wanted to, again, shop our life or disability plans or provide a census, we would just change that scope to full report here. And maybe we don't want the job classes that aren't benefit eligible. So we uncheck COBRA, uncheck retiree, uncheck temporary, and it's going to give us all our benefit eligible employees and dependents, right?
Correct.
Got it.
So, and I apologize if this is a little difficult to read. There's a lot of data on these screens, so trying to reduce it so that you can see it all without having it be 3 or 4 screens to page through. I reduced the size just a little bit, but again, you can filter out what you do or don't want to include. If you are running a file that you don't need the dependent information on that spouse and dependent information, you can say to exclude dependents, and then it's not going to give you that dependent tab. Maybe you're not interested in actually seeing the benefit information, you just want to see what's on the employee tab. You can say to exclude the benefit information, and you can also filter by location, and that way you're only going to see specific locations that are on your file. So once you run the report, you're going to get a very detailed report that has several tabs. And again, this is just so that you can kind of see a sample of what that report's going to look like. And I really wanted to mainly point out that there are several tabs across the bottom that you would page through if you're pulling everything out of the system. So all of your employee information is going to be on that employee tab. Spouse and dependent information will be on the second tab. Current benefits, that's where it would list all of the benefit plans. Each benefit is on its own line. Benefit detail is something that we would use more. It's really not too readable for you. It's more about attaching dependents to specific coverages, but you may be interested in knowing beneficiaries, and so the beneficiary tab is available as well. So it's a very comprehensive report that will give you a lot of information on separate tabs. Lindsey, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to?
The census is my absolute favorite report.
There is a lot of data on that census. You know, there's a lot of reports available within Selerix, but when in doubt, for those of you on the line, if you say, what report, do I need? There's a good chance that the data that you need is on the census report.
Yeah, and I would say that my next favorite report is going to be the generic payer report. And the reason why I say that is because this is a report that you can pull, and there's only 2 tabs to this report, but you can see everyone who's covered on one tab. Instead of seeing your dependents on a separate tab and then seeing the benefits, the generic payer report would actually list the employee, list the dependent, and what benefit it is that they're covered under. So if you are needing to see actual real-time coverage, typically maybe if you don't have a carrier file feed that is currently running, or you're changing carriers and they need an initial report before a file feed, we would generally run a generic payer report, because that's going to give you all of the information on one sheet, and it's going to specifically list only the dependents who are covered on those plans.
So if I want to know everyone who's covered with United Healthcare, I run a payer report and it will tell me all of the United Healthcare plans and which employees and dependents are covered on that report.
Exactly. And so you can also use it. I know that we've had some questions from some of our school corporations where maybe one of their union populations wants to know how many employees are covered under a specific plan, or you might have a clinic that you're wanting to provide reporting to on who's covered under the high deductible health plan or who's elected coverage under specific plans. The payer report would be your best option to run, because it, like I said, it will give you that information all on one tab. And also, if you're wanting to quickly see coverage tiers, this is a report that you can filter by tier to see who has elected single coverage versus family, as an example. And I know we get questions about HSA contributions. Maybe you are looking to see who's elected a high deductible health plan to determine which employees you need to make employer contributions for. This particular report would be usable for that as well. And you're going to go through the same routine in terms of running the report. You would click on the Reports tab, Run Reports, and you can go to your search bar. I wanted just to show you another option here. Instead of all, there is one of the other options is what are considered standard reports. This is the drop-down box that you can click and to select all to make sure that you're picking up any type of report that's available.
One thing that I'll maybe point out to our listeners that are on the line is as I'm running reports, I almost always just use the search bar at the top and just type in the word census or type in the word payer or type in the word bill. And because generally speaking, just typing in the word that you want is going to get you the report that you're looking for.
Exactly. And on one of the upcoming slides, I'm going to show you what that little star means next to the report names as well and how you can use that to your advantage. So you would request the generic payer report. Again, there's options here as well to determine the outcome of what it is that you are selecting. You can request by plan year. So say you're wanting this just for your 2021 plan year after your enrollment is complete. You can choose that you just want information based on 2021. You choose your payer, the plan that you're wanting, or you can do all plans if you're wanting everything that's associated with Anthem. Products would be the specific product name. So plan would be medical. And if you've got 3 different medical plans that you're offering, then that would be considered a product. You can filter by location if you're only wanting to see certain locations. Excuse me. And if you're wanting just to report on one specific employee, you can filter by employee, but typically you're going to request all employees and a full report. Again, ACD is the other option if you're wanting to see just changes that were made. And I'm going to talk about that a little further on in the presentation too, about specifically picking date ranges for the 2 different types of scopes.
Christine, are you going to specifically talk about delivery later on, or should I ask you about that now?
Go ahead and ask me about it now. I don't think that I've put together a slide on delivery.
So I noticed that at the bottom of your screenshot, it has the words delivery options, and I'm looking at the little bubbles at the bottom, and I've got run now, deliver, and schedule recurring report. I'm wondering if you can maybe just fill us in on what the difference between those 3 options are.
Absolutely. Run now will basically just run the report, tie up your computer to where you're not able to do anything else within Selerix until that report completes running. And if it's a report that you just want to wait for, you can just click Run Now. It will put the report in your received reports folder, and the next day, if you decide you want to pull up that report, it's going to show that it's expired. So typically what we recommend is that you choose Deliver a Report and deliver it to yourself. So you want to make sure that there's some options, and I can show you on another slide, where you can choose who you're delivering it to, make yourself the recipient, and what that does is then you're able to move on while that report's running. If there's something else that you want to check in the system, you can exit off of the report screen and go on and continue doing any other things that you're wanting to do. But it also puts it in your received reports folder, and it'll stay there for a lot longer. Usually, depending on the report type, it can be in there for a couple of weeks to a couple of months if you want to refer back to it to see what information was actually pulled from the report. Schedule a recurring report. If you are wanting this particular report to run daily, weekly, monthly, the same time each week, then you can set it up to schedule it, and that way it will show up in your inbox based on whatever schedule it is that you choose.
So hypothetically, we're looking at a payer report. You're picking, you've picked Anthem, and in your scope right now, you have full report, but if I were to change the scope to, let's say, add, change, delete, and I could schedule a recurring report to run every week on Mondays, looking at what happened in the last week, and I could get a report on Mondays of what changed with Anthem in the last 7 days.
Yes, you absolutely could. I would urge you to contact your customer success manager to walk you through the setup of that, because you will want to make sure that when you set that up, you're having it look back in the last week. So the date range is going to be important. You would want to choose from last interval to make sure that it's looking back to the last time the report ran and picking up the changes that were entered during that time period. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what the two tabs look like, you have the option of just the coverage by employee, where it will list the employee on one line for every coverage. So as you can see, there's some employees that are showing up on a couple different lines on this top sample, maybe because they have medical and dental coverage as an example. And then if you want to include all insureds, so you're needing to provide a report that shows employees and covered dependents, you can go to the All Insureds tab and it will list not only the employee, but their dependents and any information that we have captured in the system for the dependents specifically, such as their dates of birth, social security numbers, and so forth, and the plans that they are covered on. Any more questions about the payer report before we move on? All right. The self-bill payer extract is one that is commonly used if you have plans that are on a summary bill. So your carrier isn't requiring you to send them, or they don't send you a bill that lists everybody who's paid. They want you to provide them with the number of people who are covered and what the volume is maybe of the coverage and what premium is that you've collected. So you can do that using the self-bill payer extract. And then what that does, there are some detailed tabs that are associated with it as well, but it allows our system to be the system of record for any coverages, so that when there's claims that are needing to be processed, the information would be housed within Selerix.
Christine, do you mind if I interject and add a couple things here?
No, go ahead.
So the Selerix system, or the BenSelect system that we configure, it has the ability for you to use it to produce your bills. And the lines of coverage that I most like for our employer customers to produce your own bills for are in particular long-term disability, short-term disability, basic life, and voluntary life. We do have the ability to produce data feeds to send that information to your carriers so that you can continue to manage list bills that they create for you. But I guess my question is, why would you want to do that when you can just use our system to produce your bills, and your carriers will accept the information in our system as being authoritative, and it's you, the employer, out of a reconciliation process? And so if you're interested in doing that, then definitely get with us, and we can start that process of having a conversation between you and your broker and your carrier on that. And if you go down that path, and if you are producing your own bills, then that's where we would use this particular bill to help you manage that process. And that is the self-bill report. And Christine, with that, I'll kick back to you.
Sure. This is a highly customizable report. So normally, as a user, you're going to take a look at it and say, there's no way that I'm going to order this. I don't even know what options I need to choose. So we would recommend that you would work closely with your customer success manager to make sure that all of the options are being selected that you need to make it a usable report for you. Typically, what I recommend is that if your carrier is providing you with a billing template that you need to complete each month in order to submit your premium, provide that to us so we can take a look at it and see exactly what it is that they are asking for. Because this is a very customizable report. We can break it down by gender, we can break down age groups, we can break down premiums by tobacco usage. There's all types of different customizations on here that we can do in the background, so that you're able to use the data to copy and paste onto a billing template that's provided by the carrier. And I know a lot of times we've got groups that may run this, they run the standard and then are doing a lot of manual calculations, not realizing that we can, if we set that up for you, we can set the bill up to be exactly what you need. So again, just as a reminder, work with your customer success manager so that we can develop it to be usable for you.
For our guests on the line, I would just ask you, if you're manipulating the self-bill report to get what you need, please do reach out to us, because to Christine's point, it might be as simple as a checkbox or 20 minutes of work on our side to get that set up and get you out of manual effort for the next year. So definitely do reach out to us if you're having to manually touch it to get the output that you need.
Some other things to caution about when you're running a self-bill. You do want to run it for a month's time. You wouldn't want to run a self-bill for January through December or January through March, because it is set up to be a monthly billing, and some things are based on age, as an example. So depending upon if there's an age change or something, it could affect the way that the information is being outputted. And you also want to make sure that you're running it for a full month. I've seen some self-bills ran out there where it might be from March 25th to April 25th or something of that nature. You really should be running it for a calendar month. And there are options on the billing where you can say, if we're running this as an ongoing report, and maybe on August 1st, you're wanting the July bill, so the option would be last month. And so it will run on the 1st of every month for the prior month. Maybe you're running it July 25th for the next month. So your options that you would choose is that I want to run it on the 25th of each month for the next month. And so that July 25th, it's going to give you what's due in August.
So I know I'm just repeating what you just said, Christine, but I'm going to do that anyway.
That's okay, so I'm probably talking a little fast, so you go right ahead.
So I think what I heard you say is when I run my self-bills, I can run a self-bill for a previous month. So if it's July, I can run myself a bill for June if I want. I can run it for a current month. So if it's July and I want to run my July bill, I can do that. Or I can run it for next month. So for example, if it's July and I want to run my bill for August, I can do that as well.
Absolutely.
Got it. Would it be fair to say that people that are using the self-bill report, that's a very common report that we would set to recur? So for example, I set it up one time and I'm just going to get it in my inbox every month.
Yes. I would say that for the majority of our groups, we have at least one self-bill running on a recurring basis. But for those of you who may want to run them on your own, or you want to be able to rerun the bill, as an example, maybe picking some different options if you're just playing around with some of the options that are available. This is where I wanted to show you what those stars mean next to reports. If you are in the reporting menu on a regular basis and there's some common reports that you run, you can click the star next to those names, and that means you're selecting it as a favorite for that particular group. And then in your search bar, instead of saying all or standard, you can click on favorites, and the reports that are going to come up on your favorites page are going to be those that you have put a star next to. So that's just a way to streamline what reports you'll see once you click on that favorites bar. So the next report that we're going to talk about is the activity report. This is a very common report that we set up for our groups who are offering the employees an option to do their own life events, and also for those who have a lot of new hire activity with employees enrolling via self-service. This provides a summary of changes to employees, dependents, benefits, pending applications. The report includes separate tabs for benefits and employee notes. And so if if you're wanting to see on a specific interval, we've got groups who run this every day. We've got groups who run it weekly, where they want to see what changes an employee has made to their record since the last time the report ran. This would be the best report to order. And as I mentioned, if you allow self-service, then what we would recommend is you run it at least weekly if you're wanting to view what changes are being made on an employee's record.
Just one question about that, Christine, for clarification purposes. If employees are processing their own life events, as an employer, I don't necessarily have to have it set up where those requests can be approved without a approval process, right? So those, if for the groups on the line that are employees are processing their own life events, it can come in for approval before it actually goes to the carrier, yes?
Yes, Lindsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have any groups who are doing self-service life events where the life event is just allowed to process. I think we have them set up that they would go into a pending queue and the employer has to review those first.
Yes, all of our cases that offer self-service life events do have the setup where the HR person does approve them prior to the coverage going into effect.
And then this report would give them, once those activities are approved, then if they want to see everything on one report for a day, a week at a time, just depending on how active their group is, then they're able to pull this activity report to be able to view everything that's been processed. So along that line, and I apologize, this is looking a little fuzzy on my screen, so I don't know if it does on yours as well. I copied this out of a reporting guide, so it doesn't look like it carried over too well, but you can choose if you are only wanting to look at certain locations, you can filter this by location. And your reporting period, because this is an activity report, which would be an adds, changes, and deletes report. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about that more on some further slides, but your reporting date is actually going to be when the changes were processed. So as an example, the dates that are on here is 2/22. It would be looking at what changes were actually processed on that date, not what coverage is effective on that date, or what the effective date of the life event is if you've got a marriage or a birth or anything like that. If the birth was keyed in, if an employee changed their benefits, if they logged into the system on 2/22, then that is what will be outputted on this specific report. And again, you've got you can run now, you can deliver it to yourself, or you can schedule it to recur. And we recommend a recurring schedule. And typically, from what I've seen, some of our groups, just depending upon the activity that they have within their company, we've got some that do daily, which we recommend setting up business days, Monday through Friday, so the report doesn't run on the weekends, or weekly. But we do have some groups that if they're smaller, they don't see a lot of activity, some of them will set it up to run monthly as well. And the last report I'm going to talk about is the Open Enrollment Summary Report. And this is useful for both groups and our broker partners, mainly during open enrollment. But what you would want to run this report for is it's going to report new volume and premium. It reports renewal volume and premium, coverage drops. And some of the reasons why you would want to run this report during open enrollment is, are you offering a new plan that has participation requirements? And so do you want to monitor how many people are enrolling in that new program to kind of help determine if you need to be sending out maybe additional educational information or anything, if it looks like there's a lot of people who are not taking advantage of a new product that you're offering, maybe there's some confusion or things. So it gives you the ability to kind of reach out during that enrollment process if you're seeing that your enrollment isn't going to meet those participation requirements. Maybe you are migrating to some new plans and you want to keep an eye on how many employees are migrating over to the new high deductible health plan that you're offering, because some of your assumptions are based on a certain number of employees moving to those new plans. Running this open enrollment summary will give you an ongoing snapshot of what's happening during the enrollment. Wes, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with that open enrollment file?
No, I think that's a good summary. Personally, I run them maybe 2 or 3 times a week during open enrollment just because I like to see what's happening and what kinds of decisions employees are making. Okay.
And I know that's a discussion that we have on an ongoing basis, especially if there's maybe EOI is going to be required, evidence of insurability for a specific plan if certain participation levels are not met. It helps to kind of see, does it look like that's going to be happening? Do you need to be asking medical questions? You know, those types of things. It's much easier to try to change gears during the enrollment, having that information versus just looking at it retrospectively after the enrollment's complete. I did want to give some additional information about the scope of full files versus an adds, changes, and deletes option. So a full file, when you select that, it's going to provide you a list of coverage that is active within the report date range. So as an example, it's November 15th and your group has just finished up a 15-day open enrollment, and you want to run a payer report to view how many employees enrolled in your PPO versus your high deductible health plan for your 2021 plan year. And you're selecting it as a full file. What date range are you going to use on the report? And we're not going to quiz you. I'm not going to ask you for answers or anything like that. But if you chose January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, you'd be correct, because you're actually, for a full file, you're wanting a report on people who have active coverage within the date range of the report. So, and along those same lines, an adds, changes, and delete report provides coverage changes that were processed within a date range. So it's November 15th, you're still working on this reporting. Your group just finished up that 15-day open enrollment, and you want to run an activity report to view how many employees changed medical plans for the new plan year. So what date range are you going to use for this type of a report? Keeping in mind, it's an ACD report. The date range that you would want to select would be November 1st through November 15th, because that's when your open enrollment took place. And so your processing date, in terms of the dates that the members actually logged in and made changes, occurred from November 1st through November 15th. A lot of times we have people who will run this report and they'll run it with a January 2021 date, thinking it's for changes that are effective January 2021. But when you're using an adds, changes, and delete scope, you actually want to be putting in the dates that they would have keyed in those changes. And that is all I have for these particular reports. Wes, I don't know if there's any questions that have come up with Q&A, but I did want to talk about where do you go for additional assistance. And I know the customer success managers always love me when I put them at the top here. Contact your customer success manager. They are trained in this. I'm actually doing a second, more extensive training on reporting with them. We did a training a couple weeks ago and I ran out of time in what I was reviewing, so they get to listen to me again next week, talk about reporting and some of the different options that are available. So there are resident experts. Reach out to them if you have questions. And also, for those of you who are currently live on our system, you should all have a Steele user guide It has some very extensive information. It was developed by Lindsey and some of our other team members, and there is a section there on reporting. So if you don't have one of those guides, if you lost it, if your predecessor put it somewhere and you've never been given one, reach out to your customer success manager because they can provide you with a brand new copy for your use. And that's all that I have. So unless there are questions that came through the queue.
I'm watching the Q&A and I don't see questions that we haven't answered yet. The only thing that I would add to that, if I could quote Mike Blink, our Vice President of Customer Success, and share something that he tells people, and that is you cannot break the system by running reports. So what I would suggest is get into the system, go into your reports tab, and type in some words that you like, enrollment, census, payer, activity. Take a look at the parameters that are coming up and run yourself 5 or 6 or 10 reports. If you click the word deliver instead of run, it's just going to go automatically into your inbox and go into your received reports section. And then it gives you the opportunity to pull up several reports at the same time and see what's in them and see what you like. If you do ever want to verify that you're getting what you think you should be getting in that report, then that's a great thing to do, to contact that customer success manager and say, hey, I'm setting up a bill. I want to make sure that what I'm seeing is what I'm supposed to be getting. Reach out to us for that. Or reach out to us if you want to just set it up to recur for you. We're there to do that for you as well. But I do, for those of you that like the idea of tinkering around in your system, you're not going to break the system by running reports. So feel free to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, and definitely ask for help. We have instances where you might have a payer who has 5 or 6 of your products. Maybe they've got all of your voluntary plans, your basic life, your long-term disability, and you're wanting to run a self-bill just for basic life and LTD. You choose that payer and it's going to give you everything for that payer because you can only choose either one plan or all plans, and you need 2. So just reach out to your customer success manager because we can actually set up a second payer for you in the background that will maybe list the name of the company, and it might say Life and LTD behind it or something. And that way when you select that payer, then you're only getting the 2 plans that you actually want on your self-bill and not all 6. So the key is to ask questions and just reach out and say, hey, I really need this other information, or this is great, but it would be perfect if it also included this. Those types of things, because many times that information is programmable for us to add on.
Great. I want to thank our guests for hanging with us and for the 10th time giving us an hour of your day. We hope we've made good use of that. And so thank you to you for joining us. And also want to thank Christine Tollison and Lindsey Martin as well for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And if there are those of you on the line that maybe we didn't answer your question, feel free to email us info@steelebenefits.com or reach out to your customer success manager, and we would be happy to get whatever reporting questions that you have answered. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.